Good afternoon, the Conservabrarian here, coming to you from the car on the way home from work. I wanted to bring up an important story that's not going to get a lot of coverage, though it has been in the news. Fox News put it on, The Hill put it on, and I wanted to address it because there actually is an important story there, I think, that needs to be discussed. And it's about Lester Holt, who's the nightly anchor on NBC News. And he's been there for 20 years. He's been in journalism for longer than that. And he is considered one of the gold standards of well-respected mainstream nightly news in America. And he was getting an Edward R. Murrow Award for television journalism, and he gave a speech. And to paraphrase what he said, that misinformation is a journalism responsibility to call it out, and there is no such thing as two sides to any story. That we need to get rid of fairness. That fairness in journalism doesn't exist. Now, this is coming from the spectrum of Donald Trump, the idea of fake news. And I've always said that Donald Trump has been in their heads, and he continues to be in their heads. And because he challenged them, and he beat them. The media was all in for Hillary and not in for him, and he beat them. And their goal last election, which worked, was to defeat him and to sell out their professions in the process. Look at the Hunter Biden story, where they completely ignored it. It was a story. The Russian campaign, the Russian, hoax, that his campaign was working with the Russians to steal the election. And it goes on and on and on. We could spend hours talking about that, but what he said, Lester Holt, is dangerous. It's quite astonishing what he alluded to. And if you're going to critique it and evaluate it, one could just not assume, but what he's trying to say is, I am the arbiter of truth. I decide what's truth. My media buddies, the media blue check marks on Twitter, we are the voice of truth. And if there is any dissent, it is not allowed. It is considered misinformation. It's considered disinformation. For example, hydroxychloroquine. When Donald Trump, the president, when he was president, came out and said, there's a new drug, it's a drug that's been around for a long time. It's called hydroxychloroquine. And it's a common drug, but there's been studies about it that have shown to have some effects curbing the coronavirus. And he says, I'm taking it. He came out and said that I'm taking it. And then this is a good drug. But he also said, but you should talk to your doctor first. You should see what your doctor thinks. But I think it's good. And people went nutty for it. I mean, they couldn't believe it. He's giving medical information. He's not allowed to do that. He's the president. He's not a doctor. Even though he did say, I'm not, don't go on my word. Talk to your doctor. Well, doctors came out. Well-respected. There was doctors from Yale University, Stanford. There was a whole slew of doctors that made videos about hydroxychloroquine. and said this is not a cure, but it could help. But the media decided to shut that down. That hydroxychloroquine was misinformation, not allowed. Even though there was another side of the doctor said that you might have something here. But the elite media decided for everybody else that story was to be debunked and defaced and thrown in the trash because they said so. Even though there was two sides, they said so. Folks, that is very dangerous. Lester Holt is holding a lot of power. He knows it. But he's going to tell you he has the power, and that there's nothing you can do about it. And there's nothing anybody can do about it, because no one will speak out about it. No one will dissent. Number one, because people generally in this country are too busy to pay attention to what's going on in the world. It's just human nature. People are raising their kids. They're going to school. They're going to work. They're doing their errands. They're taking care of the house. They're just being human beings in America. It's not they don't care, but people just really don't pay attention. And he's being honest. So give him credit for that. He's being honest. He says, listen, we're here to find the truth. But the notion is that he is the truth. So there is no other side. The other side is dead. What do we do with that? What do you do with that? You have the Washington Post, and this is what I'm going to wrap up with. The Washington Post put out a story about the Derek Chauvin trial, and this was in the Philly Daily News. It is the tabloidal style, which folds like a book, right? I love that newspaper, actually. It's a good paper. They have good sports coverage from the Phillies. So their front page story was on the Derek Chauvin trial, and it was from the Washington Post, and the story was a complete one-sided social justice warrior angle. It said that the trial was to see if there was justice for George Floyd being killed by dirty racist police. They didn't say dirty racist, but they did say killed by police. Now, that's a big angle to run with. I mean, that's a subjective phrasing of what happened. They went into the trial, but they editorialized the first part. This is because the court of public opinion has decided that George Floyd was killed by a racist white police officer because there's systemic racism in America. Full, end of stop, complete. Don't worry about it. This trial is going to scare a lot of people because there's some heavy charges that have rarely been put out on police officers, like second-degree murder. And if he's found not guilty of second-degree murder and is only found guilty of manslaughter, there's going to be a lot of craziness. But we have due process in this country. But, I mean, that's a whole other story. But, again, the media is it's the social justice warrior angle. You cannot talk about anything about George Floyd. The reason why but that's journalism. That's journalism to talk about the story. It's just giving the facts. There was autopsies. There was drugs in his system. That doesn't mean that Derek Chauvin's a great guy. We want the story. But Lester Holt proves that journalism, like Sean Hannity has said, is dead. And they're okay with that. This is the new journalism. They're saying the quiet part out loud. You have to pay attention. Like I always said, you have to pay attention. Listen to their words. Because they're never going to get challenged. They're never going to get pushed back. And the people that do push back, they could care less. So, goodbye. We don't care. because they're in charge. They're in charge of your information. So you have to pay attention. All right? Have a great weekend. Happy Easter. Peace.